Hey, team players, it's Joe, Rockey, and Bob here. Fans breaking down the NFL. Today we are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. And Bob, my starting point with this is that when you have Patrick Mahomes, amazing coach, you can hide a lot of things. And I feel that when we look at this team overall, that's kind of what happened. And we can make a very realistic assessment saying that they can win a close game. They're very good at that. That's a testament to Mahomes and Reid. And for some reason, only Cincinnati can destroy that. But there's also the part of rebuilding this thing and how do we build a new team so that there's a dynasty in effect. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the part with Kansas City that is playing a little bit different than the way most teams do. Most teams, when they have a dynasty type, they want to keep the same core and ride it. That's what New England did on the first batch of Super Bowls with Brady. And quite frankly, that's what they did with the second one too. But there's very few teams that are going to have a system like Kansas City did that is a lot of people walking out the door and replacing them with one-year contracts. And I completely destroyed Houston for this problem because I believe it's a long-term issue. The key difference between Kansas City and Houston, of course, is in the middle of October, Kansas City is not going to be 1-5, and all of those players are going to be figuring out where they're playing next year. Kansas City's still the players are playing on one-year deals, prove it to me type things, which there's nothing wrong for a couple of those guys on your roster. There's just can't be a third of your roster, and Kansas City's approaching that figure. So, long story short, Bob, I'd like, obviously, how can you hate on Kelce? How can you hate on Mahomes or Pacheco? It's a great core three to start with. I am dubious that now we're essentially relying upon Toomey to be the guy at receiver. Now that you let Hartman, Juju leave, it's skeptical to me. I that's complete bias. I never trusted and or liked Toomey. So
Kadarius,
yep. So when we look at it, it's like this has to be Kelce's year. And I've also been hearing for the last 3 years, as I never draft him, because I'm a believer that tight ends are not supposed to last until they're 35 years old. And it's a scary thought. What happens if Kelce does finally fade? And Bob, I know that that's a lot of shade for a team that's the Super Bowl champion. They're quite frankly the front runner again. But I don't think I'd be doing my job if I didn't treat them the same as anyone else. I can't blast another team and just say these guys get a pass because they have Mahomes. Because it's a bad process. It's a bad process. It's the way it is.
I mean, let's go in this direction here. Is that when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year, I think despite them going with the record that they had, despite them winning the Super Bowl, there were many times throughout the year, both in the 3 losses that they had and in the wins that they had, where you said, oh my God, Kansas City's going to lose. They played Houston into overtime. They lost to the Colts. They played tough games against
Malik Willis Titans took them into overtime.
They had to come from behind against the Titans. They had to come from behind against the Raiders. And so you're looking at these teams and saying to yourself, well, a lot of this has to do with the play of Patrick Mahomes, that as a game gets going, Patrick Mahomes, he plays hero ball to the degree that Russell Wilson at times can't, because he has a guy named Travis Kelce on the field, and Travis Kelce also likes to play Superman. And
he's also much more accurate than Wilson at this point.
You have 2 Supermen on the field. Yes, there's a lot of – I'm not making a straight comparison from Wilson to Mahomes. What I'm saying is that you can win hero ball when you have good coaching and when everybody's on the same page about who's the hero is and where that ball is going. And when they're in a jam, last year, that ball was getting shoved to Travis Kelce at times. When they were down in a bind, you would rarely see non-playmakers making plays on that field. Now, Kadarius Toney adds a weapon that Patrick Mahomes should utilize more as the season goes on as a vertical deep threat. But when you look at this team, there is no brand name that says, I've really got to watch out for Marquise Valdez-Scantling. I really got to watch out for Sky Moore. At this moment in Sky Moore's career, I don't have to watch out for him right now. And I believe they have a guy, Justin, I think Thornton or something like that, where I'm looking at this collection and I'm saying that it's probably the weakest that Patrick Mahomes has ever had to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But to that degree, I think that the youngness of the team with a good coach like Andy Reid, they get better as games go on because they are learning from the issues that they're having. And a good coach can teach young players like that to be better. And I think Patrick Mahomes in and of himself can teach his wide receivers how to get better as the field goes on and say, hey, I'm going to do this. You just be where you need to be, and I'm going to get you the ball there. Now, I don't want to knock on Patrick Mahomes because I can knock on a couple of things. But what I do want to say is that their ability to come from behind in games is a godsend for the Kansas City Chiefs organization. Because there are points and times in those games where they looked like they were just dead to rights and they were going to lose. But you would see the odds would still favor Kansas City when you would look on like FanDuel
live betting,
because they knew what was going to happen. We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew they weren't going to lose to Houston. That's why they were still the favorite as they were losing to Houston. And I want to say this about this team is that one of the biggest things about this team that they lost was Brown. That was the biggest piece at left tackle. And you've replaced him with a guy who, for all intents and purposes, is not even within 3 tiers of Brown. And you say to yourself, okay, that's what's protecting the left side. You went out and you got Jawan Taylor to protect the right side. And I think we're going to see a lot more hero ball out of Patrick Mahomes this year than we have seen even in past years. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing for Patrick Mahomes as it was for Russell Wilson. But I will say that it's going to probably be a little bit more challenging for the Chiefs because, let's face it, they didn't get better in the offseason. Well, teams around them went out and tried to get better. They went out and basically continued the status quo and said, well, we won. So our best is clearly better than your best. And so we didn't have anything to go after, but you lost something big. And to replace it with not a caliber of player that, I'm not saying that Smith is a bad left tackle. I'm just saying that when you look at him in comparison to Brown, there's a lot to be desired, a lot left on the table. I mean, he did come from the Bucs after all, and Tom Brady was running for his life last year. And so when I see the Kansas City Chiefs, they added Drew Tranquill on defense, and I like Drew Tranquill either as a every down player or as a spot player in that lineup. But, I'm not enthused at the fact that they didn't play a full game against Malik Willis, the Tennessee Titans, and Derrick Henry. I'm not enthused that they lost to a Matt Ryan Indianapolis Colts last year. And I'm definitely not enthused for the fact that in a lot of their games last year, unless I'm speaking incorrectly, I remember them coming back a lot in the third and the fourth quarter after halftime adjustments. And that's what Andy Reid really is good at doing, is adjusting to it. You saw it in the Super Bowl. It felt like the Eagles were going to win that game, and then bam, all of a sudden coming back. And, Travis Kelce's 33 years old, like you said. He's approaching 35. He's not getting any younger. But to that degree, when you have in fantasy versus real life, in fantasy, I think he's worth your consideration early in the draft because it's at a position of great need in fantasy rosters. But on the field, I was surprised to look at his stats from last year as we were going through picking players in our DFS lineups. And, outside of those games where he had like 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, there was some average games where maybe Patrick Mahomes didn't pass him the ball as much. Now, with all of that said, they're still clearly the favorite in that division to win that division.
Yeah,
and
they're one of the three favorites to win the conference. Yeah,
they're in the favorite to win the AFC, and they're probably either 1 or 2 to win the Super Bowl next year. So these are nitpick things for the Chiefs as an organization. But I wouldn't go without the realm. I would be remiss in saying that losing Brown isn't going to affect the Chiefs negatively. And if, say, Pacheco goes down, or let's just say Patrick Mahomes plays too much hero ball and gets hurt, this organization is in trouble, because I don't believe that did they sign Jarrett Stidham or something like that?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, that's not a thing. So they need Patrick Mahomes just as much as they need Andy Reid, because this organization, on paper, on offense at least, if you take Patrick Mahomes' name out of that lineup, top to bottom on the offense, you're like,
yeah, no, there's no doubt that's the Patrick Mahomes effect. This team is certainly relying upon development from unproven receivers. Kadarius, Sky Moore, the one that they drafted this year, Reese, ESPN has graded as a 62, which is a D. So for a second round, 24th pick in the second round, that is pretty bad. So there's a lot of people saying, you guys messed up your draft. You guys haven't been drafting well. And, obviously the oil is Edwards-Helaire. The first round pick who's, basically useless. And, he gets shaded more because a lot of first round picks don't bail out, but a lot of other first round picks aren't also drafted in fantasy leagues all the time. And that's why it sticks out more. So, Reid is one of these very few coaches. There's about 5 of them that consistently have winning records in close games that are one score or less. And there's a tremendous testament to that. And we look at this and say, from the outside, I'm not really thrilled about the skill position rooms that are next to Mahomes, but they went out and got a pass rusher. They had a top 10 defense last year that was very underrated. They love blitzing on defense, and they have the capability of doing that. And when you have a lead, and there are certainly games where they just blow people out.
And now they can put Pacheco on because Pacheco's an animal.
That's the thing. I don't think they're playing the same style of offense as years past. I think we're going to get much more Pacheco just kill this thing out. Because last year, Pacheco didn't really come on until about week 10-ish. And he didn't really get truly the full trust of about week 14 or so. And seeing the team this year with the full, all right, just give it to Pacheco, this thing's over, we're up by 14, and trusting your defense a little bit more might seem a little upsetting to those who want to bet the over on every single Mahomes game. But they're going to win a lot of games again that way.
We're going into a season now where Pacheco's had 2 off-season surgeries. And, that's – if he comes back healthy from those injuries, great. If they don't affect his performance, great. But I think it's really interesting to look at stats of when a player loses, like say a quarterback loses their number 1 running back, how their stats go up. Like Patrick Mahomes, when he doesn't have a capable runner behind him, he's approaching 500 yards passing.
Well, because he can.
When he does, he knows that he doesn't have to. And that's the best thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is what all organizations are striving to do, is that they have a complete team. And there's no, other than Mahomes, who is the star of the league and the star of the team, you have, the wide receiver room isn't anything to write home about, but, let's think about New England Patriots. Other than when the year that they had Randy Moss, you're looking at Julian Edelman, and then you look at Rob Gronkowski. That has been successful in the past, having a stellar tight end,
what they're doing,
and some guys on the field that can really go out there and just at least put pressure so that I can get the ball to you kind of players. And it's nobody that I would want to be like, other than Kelce, Pacheco, and Mahomes, I'm not targeting any of these players in fantasy until we see something. And so we see something from that team. And I think it's really interesting, too.
Well, I can tell you I'm
actually what?
Definitely not targeting Kadarius. No
but
Kadarius
I think it's
for
really
me.
interesting that the Chiefs are beginning the season with the Lions. That game sets the tone for the season. If the Lions come out with as much vigor and vim as people think that they're going to come out with, and they beat Kansas City, this could go two ways. The one way, it's not going to affect Kansas City at all.
No, it's not.
Whether they win or lose that game, it's not going to affect Kansas City, but it will affect Detroit.
Oh, yeah. Detroit wins that game.
If Detroit wins that game, you're looking at the NFC North champs right there. Because they're going to get big brain. They're going to get big brain, and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we know we can do it. We did it. Let's keep doing it. And that's going to be really scary. So I'm kind of excited for that game, and I'm surprised that it's actually the game that's leading off.
Yeah, I really thought it would have been Cincinnati.
Buffalo or Kansas City versus Cincinnati, and it's like, I'm excited for it, though.
Me too. So Kansas City, again, they're winning this division, and it's going to come down to seeding. And I don't think they're going 14-3 again, though. Given their crossover games,
maybe 12-5.
Yeah, but because of that, I don't think they're getting the 1 seed. I think that the AFC North winner, because they're playing the South, and then they're also playing the cupcakes in the NFC of the AFC or the NFC West, I think there's a very good chance that the AFC North winner has at least 14 wins. And unfortunately, just because of the having to play all of the AFC East, I can see the Jets picking these guys off. I can see, New England just being stupid and running the ball for 5 hours, Mahomes not getting it back. I can see that kind of thing where the AFC North doesn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, I think they're a good team. I think they're going to be the 2 seed, and I get to see them play Allen, or at least probably play Allen, in the playoffs, which is always fun. So we'll see how it goes, guys.